Hi guys, I hope you're all doing well and keeping safe. Welcome along to my next tutorial. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be building a boat race. So again, this will be in Scratch 3. Now we're going to be starting off with some project resources. Now I have them linked below in the video description. But when you open them up, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see there's already a backdrop brought in and we already have a sprite set up, which is our boat. And the whole idea of this game now is we are going to be getting the boat to follow the mouse around the maze over here to the finishing area. So let's get started. Now, the first thing, as always, what we're going to be doing is going to events, and we're going to bring in when green flag is clicked. Now, we need to set the position of our boat always to start over in this corner. And now the boat is currently pointing to the right, but we want the boat to be pointing straight up. So let's fix those two. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in the block point in direction 90. Now we're going to change the 90. When we click on that, we get this cool new compass style thing. We are going to drag the arrow up until it says point in direction 90. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to go the block go to X and Y. Now, what you'll see, it should say minus 190 to minus 150. That is the current spot of our sprite when we loaded it in from the resources. So now, if we test out, press the green flag, we see our boat pops up the right way. Now, if we were to drag our boat over there, press the green flag again, it'll always default back to this position, which is perfect. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to set up our movement. So we are going to start off with a forever loop. So again, anything that we put inside a forever loop is going to run for the entire length of time that the game is running until we press stop. So we are going to start off, we want the boat to point towards the mouse pointer, and then we're going to get it to move a certain amount of steps. So let's go ahead and do that. So we will go up to our motion section and we are going to find the block of point towards mouse pointer. And then we're going to bring in move 10 steps also for motion. I want to change the 10 to 2. You'll see why now in a minute. 10, now you guys are more than welcome to try it out, but the 10 steps would be very quick. So press the green flag and there we go. Our boat is moving. And you'll see we'll be able to follow it around. Now, there is a problem with this. If we stop the mouse, you see now our boat kind of glitches. So there's a way we can stop that. Basically, we stop the code when the boat gets within 5 pixels of the mouse pointer. So what we'll do is we're going to pull out these 2 blocks here for the moment, and we're going to go into our control section, and we're going to bring in an if loop, if then. Now, we want to set it up that it'll always point towards the mouse pointer. It'll always move 2 steps towards the boat until it gets to 5 pixels towards the mouse pointer. So let's set that up. So we go into our operator section and we're going to bring in the greater than block here. Bring it into our little diamond shape. Now we're going to change the 50 to 5. Then we're going to go into our sensing section and you're going to find the block. Now this is a new one, distance to mouse pointer. And we're going to drag that on top of our first block, our space. Now the 2 blocks, the 2 blue blocks that we dragged out here, we're going to bring them inside our if loop. Now if we test the green flag and we let it get up, now it doesn't glitch, it just stays put, which is pretty cool. So it makes it much easier now when we are going to be navigating around some of these turns, and especially with some of the cool stuff we're going to add in. So now the next thing, you'll notice we can drive the boat anywhere at the moment. So we need to set up the code to tell the computer what happens if the boat actually hits into one of these walls. So we'll just stop our game for the minute. So what we want to do is we're going to set up an if loop that if the boat touches the brown wall, something's going to happen. So in this case, our boat is going to crash. So what we're going to do, we're going to do something cool now. While we have our boat selected, we're going to go into the costume section, and you'll see this is where we can change the color and all sorts here, but I'm not going to do that today. I want to right click on our costume here. I'm going to duplicate. Now, I'm going to change this costume to crash. And then we're going to use the select tool down here. It has the square with the dots in it. Now, what we want to do is I'm going to actually break apart this sprite. So I'm going to drag a circle, or a square, sorry, around. Then I'm going to tilt it ever so slightly. Now this is a bit tricky. And then I'm going to pull it out, just like that. I'm going to do the same over here. So it's going to give the effect that the boat is broken apart. Okay. So I'm just going to do one back here. And we'll do a big one here. And just drag that like that. Now, and you'll see on our game window, our sprite now looks pretty broken up. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to click on back to our code, and we're going to bring in a new if-then loop. So this is just underneath the other one. Now be very careful when you're bringing in this that it doesn't go inside this if-then loop. We want it inside the forever loop, but underneath the other if-then loop. Okay. Now we are going to go into the sensing section, and you're going to find the second block, touching color. Okay, we're going to drag that fellow in there. Now we want to pick up this brown color here. So what we're going to do is we are going to click on the color in our block here, and you see this cool new function. Now this is part of Scratch 3. It's totally different to Scratch 2, but we're going to select this color picker down here. So when I select that, it highlights our game window, but when I bring the mouse over, it brings up this circle, and we can select any color we want on the game window, but we want this brown color. And you'll notice when we're over the color we're selected, the whole circle becomes brown as well. So we'll click on that, and you'll notice now the color in our block here has changed. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we need to tell the computer what happens when the boat touches the brown color. So we're going to go into our look section now, and we're going to switch costume. Okay. Now our normal, our first costume is normal. Our second costume is crash. So what we're going to do is we are going to switch our costume to crash. Okay. Then we are going to do a new thing, which I haven't done with you guys before, is we're going to go into sounds. Okay. Now, at the moment, we just have a default sound here. Now, you won't be able to hear the sound on this video, I don't think, but we'll give it a go anyway. When you click sounds, down the bottom here on the left-hand side, you have the little menu, and we are going to go choose sound. Okay. Now, I am going to find the sound. It's called Crash Beatbox. Now, we just have to... Where are we now? Crash beat. There we are. So I'm going to select that. Okay. So we were going to go back to our code. Now, if we go into the sound section, we are going to bring in the second block, start sound. Now, the default always says pop, but what we want to do is we click the little arrow here after pop, and we're going to change that now to Crash Beatbox. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we are going to get our character to also say something. So I'm going to drag it in, say hello for 2 seconds from the look section. Now I'm going to change this to no. Okay. Now you guys can change it to whatever you want, so long as it's not rude. Okay. And now what happens? So our boat's going to touch that, the blue wall. It's going to switch the costume to the crash. It's going to play the sound. It's also going to say no for 2 seconds. But then what we wanted it to do, like all kind of arcade games, is we wanted to reset. Okay. So we can do that by simply bringing these 2 blue blocks back in again. So we are going to go to X and Y, drag that in, and we're going to bring in point in direction. Okay, so again, we're going to change 90 to 0, and we're going to change X to minus 190, and we're going to change Y minus 150. So let's test that out now. Now what you notice is it's actually, now you've probably, the sound is probably picked up on my microphone, but what you notice, we have a problem here. We have the crashed costume still set up. So there's an extra step we can actually do when the game starts. And what we're going to do is we are going to, when the game starts, we have our position and the direction it's pointing, but we're also going to tell the computer what costume we want. So we can go to our look section, and just under the go to X and Y at the very top, switch costume to normal. So now if we try it, you'll see there we go. So our boat now has the normal costume, and if we crash, it switches. Perfect, and then it resets. Now, for some reason, it didn't go back, but let us have a look. That's because it needs to be inside the loop. So what we will do is we will bring it back here as well. So let's try that again. And that will crash. Brilliant. Okay, does that. And perfect. Now, so there we have it working. So the switching costume back to normal here is inside our loop. So that'll run every time. It didn't run the first time because it wasn't inside the loop. But it's still good to have the costume to switch back to normal outside, just in case the game glitches for some reason. So now we have that set up. Now what we need to do is we need to set up what happens when our boat gets over to this is an attempt at a beach. It looks pretty cool. You guys can customize it if you want. So what we're going to do, it's very similar now to the if-then loop that we just created here. It's a little shorter. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the control section. Once again, if-then. Now make sure it goes underneath the other if-then loop, but inside the forever loop. Okay. And we're going to go into our sensing section, and it's going to be touch and color again. Now we need to change the color. So we click on the color here, click our color picker, go over to our game window, and we're going to select the sandy yellow color. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get a cool sound. So we are going to go back into our sounds here because we need to add a new sound, and we're going to search for a cheer. So if I scroll down, I could probably search for it quicker, but that's grand. We'll use that. So I've selected here. So go back to our code block, and we're going to bring in start sound pop. Again, pop is the default. And now you'll see, because we selected our sound from the sound tab, it's here in our drop-down menu, cheer. Okay. Then we're going to get our character to say something like, woohoo! And say it for 2 seconds. And then finally, we are going to, because we got to the end, we are going to stop all. So we'll just see if that works now. Okay, oops, I put the stop all in the wrong place. It has to be in our loop here. Okay, so we are driving around. Hopefully it won't crash. Okay. Now. Brilliant. Okay. And the crowd abruptly ends. Right. That is very good. Now, but the game's kind of simple. So we're going to kind of introduce a couple of options now. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to bring in a timer. Okay. So we can see how long it takes for the character or the boat to get through the maze. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go click on our backdrop section, and we're going to add our time code here. So the first thing we're going to do now is go into events, bring in when green flag is clicked. Now, we need to set up a variable. Okie dokie. So the variable, we click on our orange section here and click on make a variable, and we're going to call it time. Click OK. So you'll notice now we have in our game window, we have our time counter up here. We also have a bunch of new blocks. So as always, when the game starts, we want the clock to be at 0. We're going to get the clock to count up this time to see how long it takes. Usually in other games I've made, we get the clock to count down. Okay, so next thing now is we need it to count up. So we go into our events. I'm going to bring in a forever loop. Now we are going to get it to count up in milliseconds. So we are going to stay in the control section. The very first block in the control section is wait 1 second. And then we're going to click in, and we're going to change that to 0.1. Okay. And then we are going to go back into our variables and change time by 1. I'm going to change the 1 to 0.1. So now, if we start our game, yay, see our clock is working. And the cool thing is, if we crash, the clock is going to keep going. So that's great, that's perfect. Now we can actually, if we double click on our clock, you get a couple of different options. And you can have it wherever you want. So I usually set it up in the corner here. So that's the first kind of extra we're going to do. Now the next thing is pretty cool. We're going to put little speed ramps in, or speed arrows. Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to go into our backdrop now. I'm going to select a pen, and I'm going to change the color to white, and I'm just going to draw little arrows here like that. One here, I'm going to put one here, I'm going to put one here. Now this is to make it a little bit more difficult, you see. One here, and then I'm going to put one here too, but you see now, we're going to make something cool here happen as well. Now, so what we're going to do now is we are going to put in the code that when the boat goes over the white lines, it's going to actually speed up. So, it's very simple. So if we click back onto our boat sprite below the game window and scroll down to the bottom of our code here, we are going to go back into our control section. Going to add one more if-then loop, and we are going to go into the sensing section, touching color, click on the little color fella here, and I'm going to select the white color, and we are going to bring in from the motion section, move 10 steps. So now if we test it out, see the way it kind of, oh, yeah, you see how that could be hard now? So, and what we can do is we're here as well, is we're going to add in, we're actually going to use the default pop sound. So let's see now, it'll play a sound when we go over it. Yeah, that's cool. Perfect. Okay. Now, the last thing we're going to do, this space over here on the right-hand side is kind of a bit easy to get around. It's just a straight line down. What would happen if we were to have a spinning rectangle? That'd be pretty cool. So let's try do it. So this time we're going to go down to choose a sprite, but this time we're going to paint a sprite. Okay. Now I'm going to click on the rectangle, and I'm going to select the default color for the moment, and then we're going to drag it just like that. Now it's a bit big, so I'm going to make it, oops, just like that. That's kind of a good size. Okay. Now what we could do to make our code easier is we could make it the same color as the brown walls, and therefore we wouldn't have to add in an extra bit of code. But it might be easier, just for the moment, we will add in the extra bit of code to suit this color here. So if we go back into our code section, and what we are going to do, so we're going to, back into our boat, and we're going to add in one more if-then loop. Okay. And simply what we're going to have is that if the boat touches the green rectangle, it's going to just send it back to the start and change the costume as well. Do basically the same here. So we are going to go up to our sensing, touching color, and we're going to use the color picker. There we go. And we'll try to do a little perfect, so I can copy all that code. Now what I did, I'm going to show you again. We basically need all this code here. And instead of having to drag it all out, I can right click on the first block in that if loop and click duplicate. And what that does is it makes an identical copy of all the blocks to save you having to click and drag them all again. Oop, my game has now stopped. There we go. So the last thing we want to do, it's kind of, the rectangle is a bit boring there, isn't it? Just sitting there. So what we might try and do is we're going to make it to rotate. Okay. So click our sprite, make sure we're on our new rectangle, and we're just going to go into the events when green flag is clicked, a simple forever loop from the control section, and then we're going to go back to motion and turn 15 degrees. But we're going to get this to turn 2 degrees. So let's see now, if we put it all together and we run it, now, there we go. So we'll get around this corner, perfect. Let's see now. Oh, okay. That didn't work either. Try one more time. So we're going up. Okay. Oh yeah, it's a bit tricky. Now let's see what happens if we hit it. Perfect. And we should go back to the start. Great. Okie dokie. So that's kind of the game now. So what I want you guys to do is try build it, mess around with it, try add in some extra sprites, some graphics moving around here, say like to left to right, like real arcade style stuff, and test it out, see what you think. Anyway, talk to you soon. Thanks a mil.